Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my new friend, Stacey Hylen. Hi, Stacey.
Hey,
How you doing?
I'm great. I'm great to be here. We have a
Oh,
lot in common.
I am so glad that Sam contacted me. I mean, this is just such a wonderful opportunity for me and everyone that listens to learn a little bit about all the opportunities that are available to us right now. And for people that don't know Stacey is an internationally recognized business growth strategist, an author, and a coach. And she was named the International Coach of the Year in 2016. That's so cool. We got to hear about that.
Yeah, thank
For
you.
over 16 years, Stacey has been helping 6 to 7 figure entrepreneurs with powerful marketing and sales strategies to get more clients, more profit, and more time off. How about that? To enjoy who and what they love. And that is a balance, my goodness. She's the author of the soon to be published book, which we'll talk about today. And I got a little excerpt of it because it's not out yet, but I want it. Called Hidden Profits, More Clients, and Cash. And she's a creator of several popular programs, the Hidden Profit System, Become a Magnet, Attracting Your Perfect Clients, and Selling with Confidence, Getting a Yes without being pushy, which all of us need. She was a vice president of consulting and a senior coach for Chet Holmes and Anthony Robbins world-renowned business mastery program. And I went downstairs and found Chet's book, and I didn't find Jay Abrams' book, but I found one of my sets of
Oh, yeah.
processes from him, one of his workshops. So I love everything you've been doing. And you've also been featured on CNN, MSM Money, Fox Business, Entrepreneur Magazine, and other media outlets. Yay. So, and here you are on Conscious Business Zone. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm so excited to be here because I really believe in your mission, right? Because I think we need to have more money in the hands of people that have good hearts and are willing to do things that are good for the world. So
Well,
I'm really passionate about yes, I'm a capitalist, but I want it to be capitalism that makes a difference.
right. Well, I do believe that the change that we're going through, business can take the lead. And there's a lot of us out there. I did a presentation 2 years ago for Unity Earth that was part of they have a week long Unity week.
Oh, I love
And
it.
I did a presentation about the new businesses. And in my research, I found hundreds of books, business books that had love in the title.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's like love is the killer app, and that kind of mentality where people realize that being a servant leader and leading from the heart makes good sense because it makes you more money. It's
Right.
and also I also love cause marketing, so that we can talk about that. But let's talk about your journey, because being in the presence of Tony Robbins, who's this giant guy, and Chad Holmes, that must have been an incredible experience. Could you talk a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so I mean, it really started for me of my dad was diagnosed with cancer and I had been in sales and um when I was doing sales, I was doing it in a consultative sales style. And so I started helping businesses grow their business while I was selling them stuff. And I loved it. Like one of my clients, she had a 200% growth in 1 year. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. So when my dad died, it really clarified for me that I wanted to give entrepreneurs back to their families because I didn't want to have it like with my dad that, workaholic and not being able to do the things that he wanted to, not be able to spend the time he wanted to with us. So that's how I got into coaching. And when I was coaching, I was, doing that whole thing of like getting up in the morning. I had a little one. I was getting up and nursing her at 4 in the morning,
Oh,
going to BNI. Then my husband and I were like crossing in the parking lot that he would bring the baby and I would take the baby home. And at that point, one of my friends said, Chet Holmes is looking for someone to help coach his entrepreneurs. And I didn't know who Chet was. I mean, it was like back in the early days. And when I went and saw his content, I was like, oh my gosh, I would be so lucky to be mentored by him. And I was the second person he brought on in the company. I was the longest coach that he had there. So, it was just like such an opportunity because when I first started with him, I mean, it was like three of us, four of us on a call and him mentoring us. I used to hear him in my sleep. I just had a call with his daughter, Amanda, yesterday, and I told her, I said, I could hear your dad in my sleep all the time. And so Chet has this process called the Dream 100, which is how to get those big whale clients that everybody wants. And so he was using this Dream 100 process to try to get Tony Robbins as a client. And when he was doing that, he was giving us the play by play every week on the calls and be like, oh, I sent this and I did this. And, Tony's invited me to go to this event. And so he was really excited because he thought he was going to get Tony as a client. But what happened was that Tony, when he found out of Chet's genius with all of the stuff that he did, he and Chet formed a company together called Business Mastery. And so it was even better than becoming, having Tony as a client. He became business partners with Tony. And so that's where I was able to go to the very first Business Mastery. That's where the book Hidden Profits came from, was from a conversation that Tony Robbins was having with an audience member at that first Business Mastery.
Wow. Wow. That is so cool. Well, both of them are icons in our industry, and they have a different morality. I also was a student of now I can't think of it, Covey,
Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey, and followed all the 7 habits. And Stephen Covey wrote that book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, people, executives, people, whatever it is, because he thought morality wasn't in business anymore, and he really wanted to reinstate it. And I really believe that these guys were fundamental in the same mindset of win, 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 win. There's no trickster. This wasn't a car salesman. And we're still seeing that cynicism today in society, afraid of talking to the salesperson. I'm going to get sold, all of that from back 40 years ago, 30 years ago, where there was a lot of win-lose, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think also it's also about having things that actually work and giving the whole value. Like in the book Hidden Profits, I actually tell you exactly how to do it. I'm not being like, oh, I'm going to gatekeep all the good stuff and you have to go pay me $3,000 to do it. And I think that's the thing, is you need to be able to give value that people can take and leave with and actually implement, which is a big part of it.
Well, and I do totally agree with you. I'm always reticent to share things that I haven't tested out myself with my clients. I always try to use myself as the guinea pig, if possible, so that I can test even a scheduling program before I put someone in it, to make sure that everything works, because you really don't get a second chance to build your integrity, to recreate those relationships. Everything is a relationship, really.
Yeah, and I think the important thing here is people are always surprised because I have a client that's been with me for over 15 years.
Yep.
I have clients that, I have a mastermind that's now everybody just renewed for their 8th year. I have another one that's been going for about 3 or 4 years. And so the thing is it is profitable to be a good person and to give and, give value, because once people find you, they become a client for life, which means you're not having to constantly run and constantly promote, because you already have a good book of business to go into next year with, that you're not starting at zero every year.
Yep. I'm in the same boat. I prefer that. And I'm crazy about keeping backups. I've got backups of backups. because people do come back. Either they'll leave for a little while because of their life, and then they come back. And I have at least 15 years of people's stuff that I can retrieve.
That's amazing.
And unearth. I better knock on wood when I say stuff like that. But so tell me a little bit about being Coach of the Year. That honor has to be amazing. There's so many people that are hanging their shingle out as a coach, whether it's for body, mind, or spirit. I mean, it isn't just necessarily business. And there is a little bit of all of that in any kind of coaching to try to create balance and harmony. Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, that's a huge honor.
Thank you. So it was a nominated. I got nominated for it, and then it was people voted. So the public voted. My clients voted for me, and then they had. It wasn't just a popularity contest. They actually had like a board of directors that actually selected from the people, not just like the top votes. So that meant a lot to me because I think you and I have both been doing this for a long time. And I think what happens is that we see the market get flooded with people that just are like, oh, I can be a coach and just hang out their shingle. I mean, back when we got started to build a website was, $10,000. Now you can have your website done for less than $100, in a day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the barrier to entry has gotten a lot lower. And so I think people have to be more, really do their homework when they're working with people. So that, being International Coach of the Year meant a lot to me because it was, clients voted, people online voted, plus it was peer reviewed by top coaches to choose. So
That is so cool. Well, congratulations on that. I mean, that's a lifelong accolade that you've got to be very proud of. And the fact that peers as well as your clients want you to be recognized is really amazing.
yeah, it
So,
felt good.
so I wanted to ask about being behind the scenes with these super duper icons. I mean, I studied all of these guys and always was interested in the energy that their passion, their energy, their beliefs, how they were able to hold on to their beliefs, that none of the work that I saw was the shiny object syndrome. It was all grounded in perseverance and stamina. It wasn't quick fixes. I mean,
Yeah,
of course,
for
you
sure.
want results as quick as possible, but that wasn't the impetus of it. Could you talk a little bit about because then we'll go to your book and
Yeah.
about
Oh,
some
sure,
of
sure.
the
Like this is the stuff that nobody gets to hear, so I'm glad you
yeah.
asked about it. So I'll give you a little bit of like working with Chet and Tony, and one of his secret things, like I like where you said there was no shiny object. So one of the things that Chet did, and it's in the Ultimate Sales Machine, is breaking your book into impact areas. And so you choose the impact areas that are important for your business, and then you set your meeting rhythm for those. Like, so for example, marketing would be every week, sales could be every week, HR might be quarterly, right?
Mm.
So you choose these impact areas, and then you set up meetings with your staff that's implicated in these areas at that meeting rhythm. These meetings are not to be missed for anything,
Right.
right? So I had Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern with Chet Holmes like every day, every month, every week for years and years and years until he passed away. And you don't go to the dentist, you don't miss it. But the thing that was really interesting about this is when you choose those impact areas, entrepreneurs, we have tons of ideas, right? So it's like a ping pong ball. And we were talking before we got online about this, ADD kind of thing. And so what he would do is Chet would say, for example, I had a really good idea for the coaching and, growing the coaching side of the business. I could send it to him in an email, and he would send me back an email and say, unread, add to agenda for Monday.
Oh, good.
So this was like a really good thing for entrepreneurs because even if you don't have team members, so if you're out there watching this or listening to this and you're like, well, I don't have a team, you meet with, as I say, me, myself, and I, right? During that meeting. So like you're going to set yourself a meeting for marketing every week. You're going to set yourself a meeting for sales. And that's when you work on the business,
Mhm.
right? So that's like, okay, what were my results with my marketing this month? How can I improve it? How can I, what worked last month that I could improve, use again or improve or do more of? And so having this rhythm that you're constantly working on your business was one of the key things that I think made such a big difference in whatever they were doing.
Wow, that so I have to say I would agree totally. In my experience, I owned a clothing store that went from $225,000 to $1 million in a year.
Wow.
And I worked there first and then bought it after my dad died. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was one of those kind of things like if this was mine, I'd do this and this and this. And I had a once a week meeting with my manager, and then he managed the I had 10 employees. So he managed the other people. And then the other time I saw this, I worked at a training company in manufacturing. This was before 2008. And there were, I think, 8 of us, 6, 7, 8 of us. And we had once a week meetings. And you could not show up. If you said you were going to do something the week before, there was no wiggle room at all for, especially sales and marketing. There was no wiggle room for saying, well, oops, I forgot that on my list, because you were you were in that meeting.
You're
We,
in the
yep,
front row, like
yep. And we
that makes
went
sense.
from, I think it was 800,000 to 5 million in that
Wow.
year from
Wow.
doing that, because it was an engine. It's
Yeah.
an engine, right?
Yeah.
Everybody gets the excitement. They leave their ego beside and they roll up their sleeves and they all get excited about, well, I can contribute this and you can contribute that. And it creates this momentum that is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you said that it's an engine because the book from Chet is The Ultimate Sales Machine.
Right.
He has a newer version of that since he passed away. His daughter Amanda, who I was just on on Zoom with yesterday, she wrote a new version of that. I actually have a case study in that book of a client that we went from 6 figures to 8 figures using his Dream 100 strategy. But it's like people want to stop doing what works. Like for example, I had a salesperson of one of my clients, and he said, "Well, we've been doing this Dream 100 mailer. Okay, what do I do now?" And I said, "Well, you're in month 2. You don't stop the strategy and go do something else." I said, "We're going to keep going. Like the thing is that you just have to keep going. You have to keep adding people into the beginning of the funnel, and then you keep marketing to them and doing the sales process the whole way through. It's not an overnight fix, which a lot of people want these days."
Right, right. Well, I think the industry has created monsters in a lot of ways, because there's so many different ways to communicate. And basically, all of what we're talking about, sales and marketing, is, as I said, a relationship. And you want to create these relationships that are equally rewarding. And the customer rewards you with their attention and then hopefully their money. but attention is the big challenge right now, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, and I think I had done a reel about it a while ago of like, people are saying like do 50 social media posts or 30 social media posts in under a minute and under an hour or whatever the number is. And the problem is that as more people are doing like 30 posts in 30 minutes or whatever the speed goes, is that there's a lot more marketing noise, right? Chet talked about it in the beginning of the Ultimate Sales Machine of like marketing noise that has increased exponentially. But I think the thing that you can do differently, anybody that's watching or listening, is not just be in the marketing noise, but to have your strategic positioning done so that what I call it, from being commodity to being couture. Right? Because when you're a commodity, like, look at me, look at me, look at me, and everything is the same, there's no reason for somebody to like tune into you and to your business. And so when we go from that commodity to couture, you become the one in the industry that people are like, okay, they have something different. I want that. And that's where we start, is to do that strategic positioning before we even do the AI integration. Because if I do AI integration in your business and you don't have strategic positioning, you're just doing more of blah out the door,
Right.
right? And so
Right.
that's really important.
Well, I'm glad you brought up AI because I'd love to go down that path a little bit. In my industry, there was a survey done at Guy TV that one of my friends was part of, or initiated, and Matthew Bailey, and there was such a low confidence in the spiritual market for AI. And I was shocked. I mean, so many of the people in that marketplace are emerging businesses. They're maybe one, two-man businesses or woman businesses. And the idea of you not using tools that'll make your life easier really, really surprises me. The distrust of it surprises me. Have you could you talk a little bit about your experience with AI so maybe we could get some more confidence here?
Yeah, so I did a presentation on AI for thought leaders, and I really believe that the spiritual people that you're talking about are in that thought leadership space. And I do think that there is a distrust, and um, I think you have to educate yourself. So first of all, you want to make sure that your settings on your AI are set to not train the model for everybody, right? That's crucial. I mean, almost every single person that I talk to has not done that. So that's, if you're listening or watching, like, go do that when you
Yeah.
get off the from
Yep.
watching this. But also it's again like treating it in a way that is from your heart, right? So if you're a spammy hustle culture bro marketing dude, that's the output you're going to get, right? And you're going to amplify that output. But if you're a very heart-centered person and you're coming from that space, then you should be able to amplify that with your AI. And so one of the things that I would suggest, if you've been, resisting it, is to just try talking to it. So in chat gpt, you can press the microphone button and actually talk to it. So a lot of times I'll have my phone and I will tell it a story. So the thing about AI is it's going to sound like everybody else unless you share some of the things that you know. So I was telling this story that was from years ago when my kids were little, that this Russian guy that I met at the gym wanted me to work for him. And so I went to meet with him. I met with him a few times and his wife. Then they asked me to come to their house. And their house was this, like, I don't know, 14, 17 bathrooms, helicopter pad, all of this stuff. Dobermans when you get there. And I was like, okay. And then when he told me like what business he was in Russia, I was like, I don't think this is the kind of Russian I want to deal with. Right. And so that's like a story that like was in the back of my mind that I just thought of the other day when I woke up, and I was like, okay, that's a story that now if I were to talk into my microphone, which I did on my chat GPT, that's going to be a story that's in my voice that sounds like me. So I think really just like start telling it stories, start telling it, um, you know, what you think about, start telling it what made you start what you're doing, start telling it what are the really exciting transformations your clients are having, right? And when you start talking to it instead of like, oh, I have to type it out, because typing it out takes, I think it kind of deletes the download when you have to go through your fingers. Like when
Yep.
I love to write with a pen because I feel like it's super easy. Even with my iPad, I use the writing tool. Um, so I think using your voice, you're going to get a much better output, and just start to play with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a course that I created about getting your voice and fixing the repetitive things that automatically come with an output. I was on a class. I take AI classes at least once a week, if not many more. I took one yesterday, and I take one tonight again. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm finding is that the more data you can give the program, the better it'll give you results back. And what they're saying, and this was as of last week, they said that ChatGPT it's very difficult even when you've got a paid version for that to stay private. But if you use Claude, that you can have that stay private. And so if you don't want your terminology or your special, if you don't want to have trademark everything you do, that's important. So there's all sorts of things that you're going to have to keep on the pulse of it.
Yeah.
But I have to say I'm getting twice, maybe three times as much work done. And it's much easier for me personally to edit something than it is to start from scratch. So using a GPT or a prompt sequence that I know already works, and getting it from people who have already tested it out and know that it already works, that is a lifesaver. And that's basically what these guys were all trying to do. They were trying to give us formulas.
Right, right. Of what's working and following the formulas. And I think there's so much to be said for like being able to amplify your work, right? Because I think a lot of people in heart-centered businesses are their prosperity conscious might not be there. Their marketing might not be there, right? And that's why I said, how to sell without being pushy, because they're like, oh, I don't want to be pushy. But I really relate sales to serving, right? Because if you're able to help people, like I know you were saying earlier that you try things before you recommend them, that's serving your clients, right? And so you not telling people whatever great stuff you have is not serving anybody. It's not improving the world. It's really holding in your effect. And I like to help my clients create this big ripple effect that goes out through their family, through their world community, through the world. And AI is just a tool to do that.
Right, right. I love the idea also that I think we're in a new era. It's if I can get people to consider AI more like a hammer or a screwdriver, and you wouldn't show up trying to work on your house or do a woodworking project without either one of those tools. Why would you not use a tool that could make you more effective in your output and make I've found, and I don't know about you, but I've been doing this work for a long time, and I do these marketing plans that they're multidimensional, they're soul based, so that I actually channel in somebody's soul, and we see what the timeline requires, and then we implement it in this plan. And I was used to doing certain things. And when a year, 2 years ago, when I started playing around, I would just put stuff in, and I was taught to treat it like it's the expert. But I was surprised that I was forgetting some of the things, like I would do 7 of the 10 automatically. And that's what I had focused on and had success with. But that there were 3 more that I hadn't considered that might be appropriate for now. And that's what I love, is all the expanded ideas. You can go down a rabbit hole with any of these tools. You can spend like the time you used to spend on social.
And that's the thing, is to not, I always say, don't just learn, implement, because I struggled with that for years, that I would just learn, and not have the time and I would just share it all with my clients, but I wasn't implementing it for my business, which, really was not smart. So I'm like, learn, but then go implement that.
Well, I love that you just mentioned earlier about time marking out time in your schedule for you to grow your own business. Because as nurturers or servant leaders, we focus so much on everyone else that a lot of times we don't make ourselves a customer. We
Yeah.
focus on the customer's production and we don't focus on ours. So I really like that you suggested making a weekly meeting or making a priority of your own stuff. That's really powerful.
Yeah, it's a big help, and I think you can do it if it's just you, or if you have a VA or an online business manager, people in your physical space, you can do it with them as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I wanted to say is that I love your new book. Is it okay with you if I show the cover and
Yeah, yeah,
show a
that's
little bit?
great. It's
Okay. So it's called Hidden Profits, More Clients, More Cash. And
yes.
that's a great cover. And
Thank you.
I've read it's one of my favorite colors. So,
Thank you.
so where did the name come from? Did that come through as an inspiration?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you said like, divine downloads. Well, the whole inspiration for Hidden Profits came from the very first business mastery with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes. So, this was a $10,000 event, and it was at the time that, um, the recession just had happened, right? And I think it was November, right after the crash. And so people were really scared. And, they really like people that I was working with, they had lost their funding, think their leads had all dried up. Everything just like came to a halt. And so when I was at the event, Tony, I still can like see it in my head. If Tony was at the front and there was a gentleman in the front right part of the audience. Now you have to imagine Business Mastery was a very intimate event. Like Tony didn't have bodyguards then. I mean, it was like the first one. So it was like maybe 400 people, small. It was like the first event that Gary Vee spoke at.
Oh,
Like, I mean,
cool.
it was crazy. So this guy was standing there and Tony was coaching him. And the guy said, I've tried everything and nothing works. Now, can you imagine saying that with a straight face to Tony Robbins? No, like everybody in the audience was like, Tony's head is going to spin, right? So Tony said to the guy, he said, well, what have you tried? And the guy mentioned like 2 or 3 things that he had tried. And Tony said, okay, well, you said everything. And you told me like 2 or 3 things that you tried. Like, how many times did you try those things? You must have tried a lot. And he said, well, I tried like 2 or 3 times and they weren't working. And at this point, like again, the audience is like, oh my gosh, like that is not everything. And so Tony said, well, you told me everything and nothing works. And you've done 2 or 3 things 2 or 3 times. Like that's not trying everything. So he said, have you ever seen anybody that's come to this country with less than you that is more successful than you? That they don't have the degree from, the old boys network. They don't have the cash to start. They don't even have a credit card to start, like any of that. And he said, like, what is the difference between these people and what you're doing? And the final thing was that they didn't have more resources. They were more resourceful.
Hmm.
So that just stuck in my head. And that was where the divine download started happening of how can I be more resourceful for my clients who are facing, losing their funding, funnels drying up, all of that. And so I started looking at how could we make more money without spending any more on marketing or advertising. And that's how the whole Hidden Profits started. Like I was like, okay, how can we be resourceful?
Oh, that is so cool. So before we came on, I explained to Stacey that I really see her as a modern Jay Abrams because Jay Abrams, if anybody's familiar with the marketing geniuses of the past, he's still, I think, out there working, but he also worked with Chet Holmes.
Yeah.
And I have several of his books, which I couldn't find, but I did find the CDs from his workshops. And
Oh, that's a huge honor to have my name with Jay Abraham. Like,
you are the
thank you.
Well, the thing is that people, I think we have to remember that our beliefs and our stamina, our persistence is the juice that makes everything work. And when somebody says, "Oh, I tried it twice," or "Oh, I'm so disappointed," instead of being downtrodden by it, if they can be fueled by that to do better, because everything in our journey as a human is a step-by-step learning process.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
many of us, the other, I don't know if it was Jay, so one of those guys, I don't remember who it was, said, it was Ben Atkins, who was a chiropractor. Do you know who that
Yeah,
is?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
in the
he said
Dan
something
Kennedy
about,
world.
you don't remember. He goes, "Do you remember this one?" It's like, "No." "Do you remember this one?" "No." It goes, "Well, because those were failures, but you remember all the ones that hit." And so we get so worried that that our failures show more than our successes, that sometimes stops us in our tracks.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that was
Well,
that was a good lesson for me.
it's failure and entrepreneurship are just like hand in hand, right? And so my daughter was a national level gymnast. And so for me, kind of the image that I have in my mind is of her when she was a little kid and she was on the balance beam. And she would get on the balance beam and do her moves and fall off. Do her move and fall off. Do her move and fall off. And she had a new head coach that came in, and the head coach came and said to us, "We think this that she has a lot of potential. Like she could go national." And we're like, my husband and I were like, "Really? Like at this point, like she's not a graceful girl either." And we were like, we couldn't see it. And the coach said to us, she said, "That girl, nobody's paying attention to her on that balance beam. None of the coaches are even looking at her. She gets, she falls off that beam, and instead of going to the back of the line, she jumps right back up on the beam. No hesitation. So she's getting more goes, right? She got a lot more goes because she didn't be like, oh, I fell off. No, she went back on and did it again. And that just inspired me because that's the grit that she had that allowed her to go from, somebody that was not like the super graceful kid to being a national level in the top 50 gymnasts in
Oh,
Canada. So,
wow.
yeah, so that it's kind of a good entrepreneur lesson from sports because I find a lot of times sports and entrepreneurship give a lot of great correlations.
Yeah, they do. They do. So I also was a gymnast. I did
Ah,
in parallel bars
oh my
when
gosh,
I was a kid and placed in state in Ohio. I
that's
placed
huge.
third, I think, in state. And again, it's one of those things where when you test yourself and your competition is yourself, no one else, it's a whole different game that you're playing,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, definitely. No, and
Yeah.
it's I mean it's a combination of courage and grit and get back up.
And ace bandages
Yeah.
and yeah. Anyway, well, I wanted to show the table of contents for your new book also,
Sure.
so that you
Sure.
could maybe speak to. And here it goes. This is out of my sneak.
This is top secret. People who haven't seen this, this is the
Is it
sneak
okay
peek. Yeah,
to do
no,
that?
that's fine. It's fun to see.
Okay, so here we've got the upsell strategy, the come on back strategy, the 100K strategy, win-win strategy. That's fantastic. And creating strategic alliances, which of course is so fundamental anymore. I think that's collaboration is more important than ever now.
Definitely.
Fear factor strategy, turning a no into a sales strategy, follow up strategy, go to the watering hole strategy, open houses and events strategy, monetize referral strategy, track your progress strategy, social proof strategy, website optimization strategy, payment plan strategy, email marketing strategy, and improve your offer strategy. So, do you want to talk about one of them for us?
Yeah, you know what? I want to talk about the come on back strategy.
Okay.
Because this one is something that almost everybody is overlooking at. The only people that do this really well are usually dentists because nobody wants to go to the dentist. So they're like, come on back, get your butt back in the chair, right? So this strategy came like one of the big examples of this is what I call the $700,000 mistake. So I had a coaching client that did not show up for their coaching call, which is very, very rare, right? Like they're paying a lot of money, they show up for their calls and they're ready. And he said, "Well, I'm so sorry, but I had this big, $700 sale." And I was like, "Okay, well that makes sense, I would go for that also." But I said, that's really exciting. Like, I love to call it the happy dance moment when you have
Yeah.
these big wins and I celebrate with my clients. And he's like, no, Stacey, it was not a happy dance moment. I'm like, well, how can a $700 sale not be a happy dance moment? And he said, well, the reason why it was not a happy moment is because this client had been going to my competitor for the last 7 years. So that's when we're like, okay, the reactivation, come on back. We need to do this. Now, you might not have like these big, huge sales, but even small sales make a difference. With one of my clients, she was in my Hidden Profits program, and we were in December, which is, it can be good for some companies, bad for other companies, right? And she was in the worst niche for selling in December. Do you want to guess what it was?
Wasn't that a restaurant?
No, because people do eat in December. She was
Oh,
in the weight loss industry, right? And so no, everybody wants to go to the restaurant, but they don't want to lose weight in December, right? They want to eat grandma's cookies and eggnog and all the Christmas parties. And so she was somebody that is a real implementer. She's done, things all the time. Whenever I tell her to do something, she goes and she implements. And she said, I'm going to do it. And so she actually, the thing about the weight loss niche is that people are kind of shy to come back in the weight loss niche because it's almost like going to a new hairdresser and you don't want to go back to the old hairdresser. And I've actually surveyed hairdressers and I've said, like, if somebody like cheats on you and goes to a new hairdresser, like, do you want them to come back or do you just want them to go away forever? And they're like, no, like, that's fine. We realize sometimes we can't fit you in or you want to try something different. Like, we always welcome our clients back. But in the mind of the consumer is like, we can't go back. Right. Same thing with coaching or other things. People think, oh, I've gone to another coach. I can't go back to that coach. And so she did this come on back strategy and reactivated her clients. And she had her best month ever in December. So it was a lot of fun to see that, just going out, even if it wasn't perfect timing, going out and actually implementing and doing the work, she got a fantastic result.
oh, that's fantastic. I love that. And I love the fact that people are doers. That's the other thing is that bravery is a part of this whole
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
after the lockdown and everything, have you seen things change a lot in strategies that are working better than others, or have you seen is it still more fundamental marketing and communication, relationship building, or have there been some changes
Well,
since?
I think there's been some changes, but I think now that most people are back in their offices, so for example, doing the Dream 100 strategy when you're doing lumpy mail, like that's back to working now that people are actually in their offices. We had the lockdown and everything, but now we have the rise of AI. So it's kind of like, a lot has changed in the last 5 years. And so what I'm seeing with the AI is a lot more noise. And so really you have to have your strategic positioning and what makes you different, what makes you the one, and having your couture positioning lined up.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Do you find that you're having more fun now? I mean, I am. So that's why I was asking. I think right now we're in the Wild West, like when the internet started, and that there's so many opportunities to do things in a linear way. You can get AI to help you with tasks that you would have had to hand off to a VA. You can get, it isn't just about creating a zillion pieces of content in an hour that none of them have any punch to them.
Right,
It's
right.
not that, but But the other thing that I'm finding, it was fascinating. I watched a Gary V little clip on, I think it was on LinkedIn yesterday. And he was talking about, he's always cutting edge. He seems to, if you can get in between the blurbs of the cussing, which I don't love, but it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
when he was at the first Business Mastery, the audience was like, oh, because they'd never heard cursing before back then.
I went to a wonderful event. It was a video summit in LA, and he was there, and he gave everyone a pair of tennis shoes free.
Wow.
And he was a keynote at it.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
he's amazing, amazing guy. I mean, he really does know how to make relationship. He was saying yesterday that that his prediction, which he is good at those, that everybody that sells any sort of product should have a shop on TikTok or whatnot. I don't even know that one. What's not? Anyway, so I'm watching this, like whether people are having Substack newsletters or if they're doing school. Are you recommending any of these new ways to communicate as ways to connect with people's customers?
So what I like to do is look at where your clients are.
Right.
So it really depends on where your perfect clients are because if your perfect clients aren't using that platform, then you're just
Yeah.
shouting into the abyss, right? So, and the other thing is like not to always going after these sexy new objects that are coming, right? Like, I use Go High Level, a version of Go High Level that has the community in it and all of that. So I'm not going to be like going and running after the new thing of school or circle or all these different things. Like you can't keep breaking everything every year when a new thing comes out. So I think there's a lot to be said of like being really strategic in what you choose, both in your channels and where you're, hosting your people. And then, really sticking with that and making it the best it can be.
That's perfect. I agree. And what about picking narrow niches? That's the other thing that I always have people when we try to create when we create a avatar and they have, well, the person's this range and they have these propensities. It's like, no. We want you to name Sally and Sally, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I was a coach for
Oh,
Infusionsoft.
you were?
Yeah, I was a coach for their high-end mastermind, which is their over $10 million, I think it was, users
Uh-huh.
and their elite mastermind. And I went to Infusionsoft headquarters, which is now Keep for people
Right.
that are aware. And they had these cereal boxes. I took a picture of it, and these cereal boxes had like the client avatar. It was like a Wheaties box. So Wheaties box number one was a small business owner with one VA and then like the ingredients on the side of the box were like, this person is like one VA, uses these tech tools, like instead of the ingredients or percentage. And so it was really cool to see that they had their avatars on these cereal boxes, like huge cereal boxes in their lobby. And I thought that was so cool to actually see it. And now with AI, you could actually create Sally and visualize her and what her wants are and what her needs are and all of that.
Perfect. So how do you think that we keep trust using AI? Because there's so many ways to clone yourself or clone your voice. I have, for clients, I have used software before when they were reading a script and fix their eyes. So they were looking at the camera instead of the script. But what do you think about the trust? No, because know, like, and trust is so important in creating a relationship, a long-term relationship with your client. What do you think about AI and the use of the fake
Yeah,
people?
well, we're just at the beginning of that where it's getting so good right now that, people that I know, they said that their fiance couldn't tell that it was them, right? And they said that their AI avatars perform better on their reels and things. So there's a real good reason that people are using them because they're performing. So I believe it's like content in, content out, right? So there's going to be people that are using it for nefarious aims, right? They're going to take celebrities and put naked bodies on them and whatever. Um, but I can only control what I'm doing and help my clients do it from integrity. And I
Right.
think that's where we have to look at is this is like a tool because if you look at Photoshop and all of that, like that's been out for years. But when it first came out, they were like, like as I was a young woman, I was looking at all these people thinking they were absolutely perfect without a single blemish, with, not a single fold in their stomach when they sat down, any of that. And so women of my age group, they grew up thinking like that was like, what's wrong with me? Like when I sit down, I have a fold in my stomach, even when I'm skinny and 16 years old. So I think we're at that point right now with AI that people are going to kind of judge themselves against these models of perfection that are a lot higher than you would have, because if you're doing it yourself, you might say, or you might, have an itch, or you might have a weird hair flying off somewhere, or the dog might bark, right? So I think you have to use it in a way that's in line with your own integrity.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say. Because I think really, truly, again, what we're looking at right now is an opportunity during this time period that everything's changing. It's very much like when the internet started, where there's always going to be a new shiny object. There's always going to be a distraction, but staying in your sweet spot where you can make a difference, where you can get actual results, be in integrity with that, and be honest with people about what they have to do. That's the other thing, is the new and improved and always is better isn't always true.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And the other thing one of my mentors told me, he said, don't pay for any year annual tools on AI because they're always leapfrogging each other too. So what's working really well today, like next week, it might not be the best thing. So, also, don't get locked into one way of doing thing right now. Like you said, it is like the Wild West right now. So make sure that you're not investing like a year into something that next week is going to be,
That's
old
very good
news.
advice. And I think the thing is that go with the energy. You'll see when people are talking from their heart, you'll feel it. You'll feel it in
Yeah.
the voice. You'll know who's the right fit for you, and that is going to get you and help you and meet you where you are to help you be the greatest you can be, and succeed your dreams, because that's what we're all, again, this time period is we're going from one reality to a new reality, and hopefully it'll go quicker than it has been, but we're going from the old paradigm of war to peace. We're going into the age of Aquarius, and we have to change how we see ourselves, clean up our own stuff, so that we can be in service to all, because we are all connected. And the quantum physics is showing that. Nassim Haramein said that there's black holes in every single cell in your body that are connected to everyone else's black
Wow.
holes. I mean, they're coming up with this science that blows your mind, really,
It's
because
crazy what we don't know, right? Like like just like from like the energy of water, that those studies and show like you could actually see it with the microscope, but there's so much stuff that's like beyond what we can see or even imagine now.
right. Well, Bob Proctor and some of the Neville Goddard and some of the people that I'm sure you're familiar with from the work that you've done in the past, they started Florence Scovel Shinn
Yeah.
back in the 20s. I mean, there's so many of the early mysticists that gave us a glimpse into what the possibility was for humanity. And I'm just so excited about this time period because science is now, the Newtonian physics is going to end up connecting with everything again. And we're going to be able to do our heart's desire as long as it's in service to all, not in
Right. The
service.
greater good. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
totally believe that.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get to know what you're doing. And do you want to share any last thing for the audience so that
Yeah.
I know that we'll have a way for them to find you, but any words of wisdom that you'd like to
Well,
share?
I would say don't just learn, implement. I mean, I think we dropped a lot of stuff today in this call or video that you're going to be able to actually implement. So go back and say, okay, what am I going to implement? I'm going to do the meetings. I'm going to do, the come on back strategy. What are you going to, set up your security on your AI. But I do have a gift for the audience. They can go to moreclientsandcash.com. And so all of I've created a custom GPT trained in my More Clients and Cash, the hidden profits. And so you will get a whole bunch of things that you can do to add revenue to your business quickly that are free, that you don't have to pay to do more marketing or spend more time doing marketing. And the custom GPT will actually guide you through which hidden profits are best for you and your business. So you can just go to moreclientsandcash.com to download that. And then I'll be sending out notices about the Hidden Profits book when it comes out in the fall. So you'll definitely be on the early list to get the book when it comes out in September.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to this work because again, as I said, Jay Abrams is one of my heroes. Chet was one of my heroes, Anthony or Tony Robbins. I mean, when you look at these people, they're still icons in the way to create win-win. And
Yeah.
that's really what I want to say. Thank you so much for the work that you do and how you show up in this world. It's the perfect example of how business can change the world for the better and how as women we can be seen and heard and functioning at a high capacity to help that pivot happen. So I'm so thrilled to meet you, Stacey.
Oh, well,
Thank
thank you
you.
for having me, Kathy. This was wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So everyone, you'll want to go to Stacey's site. And Stacey, why don't you tell us one more time how best to find you?
Go to moreclientsandcash.com,
Okay.
and they'll get all like ways to actually quickly increase their revenue without doing any more marketing or having a big team, and get all of the places to find me online.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to playing with you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.